Hello there, folks. I'm Dan Brown and I love building model railways. I wanted to give you a brief introduction to this clip as I originally recorded it about a year ago, talking about a loft conversion at my girlfriend's house. After some concern about where she was actually going to live long term, I'm happy to say the details are confirmed, so all of the plans I talk about are about to get very interesting. So if you're unfamiliar with me or what's happening, I'm about to start work on a miniature loft conversion and loft-based railway, but I've got a lot of this old track from about 6 years ago, and between laying it out and starting to create a nice big double O gauge layout long ago, I've spent about 5 years working exclusively with N gauge track. I'd say I've got a fair amount of refamiliarisation to do with the scale of Double O, because compared to these lovely little N scale trains, where you can see I've got two desktops and I've got space to build an entire civilization at this scale, obviously Double O takes up so much more floor space, and it's something when I started to have a look at the track that I'd got and everything else that I was like, yes, this may need more space than I think. Let's be sensible here. So basically, I thought, well, my girlfriend's out. I'm going to clear all the furniture to the side in the living room. I'm going to try and keep the dog nice and calm, which did not work. And I'm going to play trains. And so here, I've got, I think, the final loop that you'll see me running here. It was at its widest part, maybe about 120 centimetres and just a shade under 4 metres long. Yes, I know, it's metres. I haven't got the feet and inches off the top of my head, I'm afraid. But it was just good to actually have a moment to properly lay everything out and properly see it all in action. And the first thing that struck me is, even though you're going to see this train derail probably repeatedly during this video, how much easier or how much more forgiving building these double O gauge tracks is compared to obviously the tiny fiddly nature of N gauge. And with that, any little tiny hiccups in the track N far more likely to cause a derailment or a more significant interruption to the smooth nature of the train's travel. Whereas here, just messing around, testing these pieces and creating layouts that didn't quite fit perfectly together, I was amazed at how smooth a lot of the running was. And as well, the very old set of track that I've got, after it's had a little bit of a clean, it runs absolutely fine. And it's amazing to see, like, several decades between the old track and the new track, and it's basically just identical. So as you'll see, we had some technical difficulties running the little loco while we had the dog in the room, but if we ignore that and talk sensibly about the project ahead. So just to give you a simple idea of it, but I will record a proper video on this up in the loft to show you what I'm envisioning and what I'm hoping to create. But I'd say, rather than a full-scale loft conversion, I want to basically try and create a fake, smaller shed area that's enclosed in the loft that can then house the track and have a much smaller and much more easier climate to try and control, rather than trying to keep the humidity and temperature steady of the whole loft with this exposed in the middle of it. I want to try and create this, as I say, like an artificial makeshift shed area that can keep the dust and anything else away from the track, and see how that goes. But like I say, more on that in the future. But with that as the context in the back of your mind for what I'm doing and testing out here, I think I want to try and create a bit of a sprawling rural and villagey type farmland layout, but also have like a bit of a dead end area with your sort of classic station setup and loads of different points and various junctions and features like that going on, but have that as it's almost a completely entirely separate layout to work on that just happens to then be attached to the end of this. And when I say this, I don't mean this exact layout. Like I say, this was more just me testing out the tolerances of the track and just creating a fun, wavy, wibbly wobbly layout, really. So my takeaways from this, like I say, there's a lot of space required compared to what I'm used to, but obviously with that comes the benefits of a far more forgiving track, and also it's far easier and far better on the eyes, as my glasses need to get stronger and stronger in recent times, to be modelling at 00 gauge rather than at N gauge and filling up the space with bigger mountainous regions and tunnels and things like that, rather than trying to fiddle around with all this tiny stuff. But let's think. I'm sorry. I'm just enjoying watching this footage back, if I'm honest. Especially now I've got a few little bits of industrial freight going around with it. There's something almost hypnotic about the way it smoothly travels around all of these curves. So yeah, I do apologise if I've just turned this into a rant, but hopefully it's enjoyable to watch. And even if you put me on mute as of this point, so yeah, like I say, I'm more than happy with what I've seen here. And I think that the main issue is going to be settling on a sensible layout that is going to be manageable and not become overwhelming. And whereas you saw my previous layouts that I'd worked on before moving to N-Gage for a few years had a lot of ovals and loops and points and things like that in, ideally I'd like to have just something more like that sprawling, wibbly-wobbly type of layout with a nice, long, smooth section of track that I haven't got to worry about points and junctions and things like that in. And the reason for that is purely because all of my experience of N-Gage and figuring out exactly how everything's going to go together, it added complexities to the layout and to the build that weren't fun, if that makes sense. Whereas I loved getting to grips and doing the modelling and building the little buildings and creating the little beer garden and things like that, and the church and the churchyard. That's the sort of stuff that I absolutely love to do. And so adding in more technical elements with points and various potential second ovals with different trains going around on it and stuff. As much as I absolutely love to see these really complicated layouts with all sorts of activity and loops and ovals and junctions and goodness knows what else happening on them, to me it is the actual experience of modelling and building the world around the trains that I love, rather than how technical and how advanced can I get and how true to life can I make this track and all the rest of it. Which, like I say, that's not to try and downplay the role of the trains as being the absolute heart and hub of the model itself. But if you look at this little N-Gage build that I've got here, you can see it's a really simple oval of track surrounded by this huge model of an urban environment, a rural, a farming, a churchyard, and all that sort of stuff. And you can see here, when I was first getting into trains of any kind, I bought all of the basic setup for the full Hornby track mat, and that was very educational for exactly this thing. It's got various little points in it and various features like that add that little bit of complexity. But compared to just building a nice big sprawling, wandering, meandering track, I think I'd rather keep it simple in that environment, have far fewer points for failure, and just get on to building an entire world around the train. So I hope that I haven't just suddenly started to sound like I'm down-talking the trains in this video, but I think I'm going to end it here right now and not push my luck any further. I love trains and I can't wait to model them. As I said at the beginning of this video, there was a little bit of confusion and delay, but everything is looking very good right now, so I'm very excited to see how this project develops in the next few months. Until the next time, please consider subscribing and checking out my other videos. There's loads more to do with model railways and life on a canal boat, would you believe? I know, just these weird, random things thrown together on this channel. Anyway, until the next time, well, see ya.